We do have a match number 32, so that is where our attention shall lie. On Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout, powered by IQ 9 5G. We were waiting with bated breath while the Delhi Capitals were still locked up in their hotel at the Taj Palace in Kolaba, and then finally they were given the green signal to travel about a couple of kilometers to the CCI. Original venue for this match was supposed to be in Pune, but as we know, Mitchell Marsh testing positive. Hopefully he's recovering soon, and Tim Seifert also returning a positive test this morning meant all sorts of chaos. We've got to put that aside now and focus just on the game. Rishabh Pant, at least something is going for the Capitals today, which is that the toss has gone Pant's way. He's going to have a bowl first at the only ground where they've registered some wins in this year's tournament. So they'll be happy to be here. We'll have Sanjay Manjrekar for this game. We'll also have Carlos Brathwaite in just a moment. Easier said than done to just put all this COVID nonsense aside and actually play a game for a team that were told to wait in their hotel no more than, 60 minutes back?
I've never had an experience as a player, but I can tell you the player's mentality. You know, once they get into the game, once they step out onto the field, and when there is business staring at you, then you forget all those things. And I think by now, everybody is coming to terms with the fact that nothing's going to be normal for a while. I'm sure a lot of them would be happy that we still have a game on. The worst thing would have been a postponement, and they're not being sure about, when you play your next game and all that. So, yeah, I mean, this is great for the IPL. And they've taken the necessary precautions, and we have some cricket tonight.
What would you and me have done if there was no game today? Just wonder.
Would have ordered something. I think something on the lines of
what Carlos Brathwaite is having.
Eating,
Let's see what he's having. Is he going to show us what he's having? Nah, he's finished it. He's polished it off because it's lunchtime in the UK where Carlos joins us from. Afternoon. Carlos, I guess as a modern day player, you've got to find a way to just live with this too. There will be times where you may not get to the ground early enough to have that pre-match drill and whatnot, but that's a sacrifice players now just have to make.
Yeah, it is. And with COVID and with COVID bubbles and all that, you really had to pivot, I guess, as administrators, as fans, and obviously more importantly as players as well. So a lot of the boys obviously won't be able to get through exactly what they do every single day, and that routine might be hampered a bit. But it's a game of cricket, and we're being well paid to play, and albeit they won't have ultimate preparation, there's always that 10, 15 minutes of preparation that you feel you need to be ready. And mentally, once they're ready enough, hopefully you can get into the swing of things as quickly as possible and put on a good show.
All right, we're back at the CCI, which saw that insane game on Monday night. Sanjay Manjrekar called it the game of the tournament so far, and a number of you might have felt that way, the game between Rajasthan and Kolkata. Back we are here, so maybe even if you lose the toss, like Punjab have today, and they have to bat first, may not be the worst thing. We saw Rajasthan, Joss Butler in form, put up that big score, which eventually resulted in a win. So is the toss really that significant at the CCI?
It still is, because now Punjab will have to find their butler, because you need 210 upwards to really feel that you have a great chance of winning. Despite that, KKR came very close. I mean, they had the match to win as well. So it's a very interesting venue where if you're batting first, the pressure is immense because you get 170 and you think the chasing team will roll it. Little surprised that Delhi Capitals have just made the one change. Mitchell Marsh has gone out. Sarfaraz Khan has come back in because their bowling needs a little bit of addressing. With Mustafizur has been brilliant, but he's gone for a few runs. Shardul Thakur has been not the Shardul Thakur. He's looking more a batting all-rounder. But that's for later. I guess the toss is a crucial one because, as I said, just putting up those runs on the board, and then the openers will feel the pressure right away.
Well, let's go to the Delhi Capitals team then. Sanjay's brought it up already. One change. Mitchell Marsh, unfortunately hospitalized after having, what was, you could say, a rusty start in that last game against Bangalore. And here we've got Sarfaraz Khan, who comes back in, who, well, in fairness, hadn't done much wrong to find himself out of the team, Sanjay, but it means that they're not playing their full complement of overseas players. We know Tim Seifert was also unavailable. So I guess Rovman Powell, wonder what they would have done if everyone was fit and available today, but it looks like Rovman Powell gets another game. Sarfaraz Khan, worthy enough inclusion in this team?
If I remember correctly, he got a 30-odd in the last game before he was dropped. And that's been a story, even for Punjab Kings. When he got an opportunity, it was never like Sarfaraz Khan really struggling to get that strike rate up. He's always been a guy who's never had a problem with strike rate, has a unique ability to score runs. And I felt that maybe Delhi will back him. But Mitchell Marsh coming in was a huge temptation to leave a batter out. So Sarfaraz went out. I have no idea about Henrik Nokke's fitness, whether that's still an issue, because that is a player that they really need in that bowling attack to give that X factor that they need. Because when you look at the bowling attack, you're looking at Fiz, the Shardul Thakur, Khalil Ahmed, and then Akshar and Kuldeep. The spinners are doing well, but they wouldn't mind getting some quality and the Nokia factor in the bowling attack. Akshar batted at number 8 in the last game, so there's plenty of batting.
Sure. Would you have been tempted to make another change there, Carlos? I mean, they're playing 3 overseas, and 2 of the overseas sitting on the bench. Yes, we know Seifert and Marsh are unavailable, but you have Lungi Ngidi and you have Henrik Nokia. Now, we've seen Nokia be a bit rusty in the one game that he did get, but surely you'd want to try and get the best of Nokia, which may come only by playing him. I mean, was there a case or merit in finding room for Henrik Nokia at the expense of a batting option?
Potentially, but it's also interesting to see what they're going to do with the batting lineup. So, is it a case that they're going Rodman Powell actually as more of an all-rounder and try to get a few overs out of him and Lalit Yadav? But I definitely think you can sacrifice it. But when I was on for Henrik Nortier's comeback game, you always just felt as though it was probably a game too soon. But there will need to be 2 or 3 of those games before you can probably hit the straps and rekindle the kind of fire he had. So they probably just do need to play him, especially with some guys out. But I think Khalil Ahmed has been doing well. And as a result of that, it's more of who's the more informed bowler, Khalil versus Northier, more so than trying to play 4 overseas or playing who is traditionally or would be considered the best bowler.
Yeah, fair enough, you think. Fair enough, because Khalil's been good. Mustafiz's had just one off game. Quick word on Rovman Powell, Carlos. I wonder what sort of character he is. You know him well. This would be a tough space for him. You know, when you know things aren't going your way, when you're nicking the first one just outside off stump, you're not even trying to play a big shot, and you get caught behind of Josh Hazlewood. That follows a string of low scores, been shuffled up and down the order. I mean, is this going to be a tough time? How do you think he's going to be coping with this?
It will be a tough time just because he got decent cash. And as a result, the expectations are a lot higher. But he has a very strong character. As I mentioned before when I was on here in the past, he was adamant that he can play T20 cricket as a number 4 batsman. And he would have rolled out these periods in the past. He has had a kind of an up and down career. And every time you feel as though he's hit rock bottom, he has the strength of character to come back and bounce back. I hope that he gets the time with the Capitals to bounce back and show that bounce back ability. But there's no doubting from my side his mentality or his character when put in a tough situation. He's actually one of the players that you want in a tough situation with the mentality that he has.
What I guess with Rovman Powell, we should extend this chat, Sanjay, to perhaps all of the Delhi middle order. And we look at 2 wins that they've had, team that's looked good when Warner and Prithvi Shaw get going. Looking at Rishabh Pant's scores, though, a 43 of 29 in a losing cause where he should have chased, where we thought Delhi would chase against Gujarat. 34 of 17 in the last game before being out to a full toss against Bangalore. And then we've seen some scores with not really the striker that we associate Pant with. Is this putting him under pressure too? Another chase? I mean, are we expecting more from Rishabh Pant? Everyone's got an eye on the World Cup too. Where do you see Pant's game at the moment?
It's a great surface for Pant to play one of those innings and, get everyone to start talking about Pant. It's interesting how his career has panned out. If you look at the last 2-3 years, he's become a formidable test batter. So we'll see, we've been talking about guys who've had great test match success, whether they've been able to have the same kind of impact in the other formats. So we'll keep an eye open on Rishabh Pant along with Virat Kohli, Rohit Sharma and the others. But I believe for the last 2-3 years, we are seeing a slightly inconsistent Rishabh Pant. The way he made his name and how he came into India reckoning was, of course, taking IPL by the storm, where he would score at a strike rate of 150 and wasn't the odd flash in the pan. There were a few innings. This surface at the CCI in a run chase would be just ideal for Rishabh Pant. And last 2 innings, last inning, a strike rate of 200. I think Pant will fancy his chances tonight for sure.
You don't believe there's any sort of pressure on Pant in terms of his future in that Indian T20 World Cup squad, especially given Dinesh Karthik's sudden resurgence and, of course, the fact that he's challenging effectively for a wicketkeeper batter's spot.
I'm loving the fact that we are already talking about the T20 World Cup and selection, because that is what the fans are talking as well. The moment we have somebody taking IPL by storm, he starts becoming an India player, and bring him back, Dinesh Karthik. Who would have thought, before the IPL began? Uh, Rishabh Pant is going to be your first choice keeper batter. I don't think he's somebody who feels that kind of pressure. Although there were times where you felt, when he was in India, reckoning that could have caught up with him. But now that he's this established player. And also one fact which I also want to let the fans know, Dinesh Karthik would have a great IPL and the selectors would get interested in him again. There are about 14 or 15 T20 internationals before India play. I think they'll pick him there and have a look at DK again, because this is a guy who would be making his 7th or 8th comeback for India. Rishabh Pant will get a little more leniency from the selectors.
I brought up those two games, Carlos, Gujarat and Bangalore. The chase seemed within Delhi's grasp. The top order had got some runs. Pant seemed ideal to sort of take them over the line and just somehow found a way to get dismissed. What's it going to take for Pant to perhaps become the more assured finisher of the team? It's a role that we know is one of the hardest in T20 cricket, but do you think he's there just yet? All right, I'm going to come back to Carlos Brathwaite. Carlos, you got me? All right, I'm going to come back to Carlos in just a second. We're just trying to reestablish the line. Carlos, you with me? I'm going to try that one more time because I think I saw Carlos move animatedly. You got me, Carlos?
Yes,
you do now. All right, let me do that again, because Pant is a colorful character. We almost brought some colors to show you that. But please tell me, Carlos, if there's still a step that he needs to make to become a more efficient finisher in T20 cricket, one of the harder things, as you would know, to achieve.
I think is a graph of maturity. You find it with players transitioning at that age where they've broken into the setup and onto the scene as more of flash in the pan, excitable, exciting young players. Fearless is a word that you often use. But then there's always a shift between that tiger line and should be more responsible, experienced player now. And that can take a year or two for him to kind of have enough in the bank from his swashbuckling days to call on when he needs a chase, but also be mature enough and consistent enough, as he's proven in Test cricket, to be fair to him, that he can have consistent seasons moving forward as the leader of a franchise. So I think it is part of his learning and his maturity as a player, as a captain, and more importantly as a batter, going from the excitable Rishabh Pant into the more mature, consistent Rishabh Pant.
All right, we say all this and we forget sometimes Pant is 24, captaining the Delhi Capitals, and yet we expect a lot more out of Rishabh Pant. But he set those standards, and those are the standards the Indian team or the Indian cricket team demands these days. So fair to have that conversation. Someone even younger than Rishabh Pant is Prithvi Shaw. What a fascinating conversation he is. Yes, Delhi are going to chase, so we'll see Shaw in action later. But 2 half-centuries already, where he's looked $1 million. Lovely innings against Mumbai to start the season too, Sanjay. So he's performed in 3 out of the 5 games so far. Yet, the Prithvi Shaw story is one where fans seem to be hugely divided. Questions on his fitness, questions on his attitude, off-the-field issues. We don't quite use his name in the breath of all the other openers that crowd for the top order as we do for some of the other positions. Could this be a season that makes us change that?
There is tremendous competition for top order batters to get into the Indian T20 team. There are many there. Ishan Kishan is one of the guys that is a competitor of Prithvi Shaw. When it comes to IPL cricket, absolutely precious. I mean, if I was on the auction table, I'll go hard for him, because he's a guy who doesn't worry about getting out. And guys who are, fearless, selfless. He'll hit, 3 consecutive 4s, get to 48, and then try and hit a 6 to get to 54. So these are priceless players, the kind of damage they do at the top. So IPL, wonderful. But if he has to break into the big league, which is done in other formats, then all these other things will have to come into the equation because the selectors will sit and say, okay, we've got a choice of these four young top order batters. What about him in the field? And of course, the stories about how his ethics with fitness and everything will come into discussion because then you have a choice with others.
Purely on batting ability, I wonder if I can ask you this tough question, Carlos. Where does he rank, right? Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Ishan Kishan, KL Rahul, all contenders to open, maybe Shikhar Dhawan too. And then you have Prithvi Shaw. You could see the enormous ability and the temptation to want to have that guy in your team, but at the expense of one of those big names, dare I say it. But purely on batting ability, would you rate him anywhere above the names I've mentioned?
I like that you pick all the tough questions and be like, I'll give that to Carlos. On batting ability, ability is not enough. You need to be working hard, need to be a student of the game. And to be fair, from the hype that he's had to the way he's transitioned into senior cricket, all the way from junior cricket, there must be a strong mentality somewhere there. Virat Kohli's work ethic has basically changed the fitness regime of the Indian cricket team. Um, is Prithvi Shaw going to work as hard as Virat Kohli did to reach the levels that he has reached? Only time will tell. I think right now it's hard to look past Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, KL Rahul, and Shikhar Dhawan. I think it speaks volumes for the strength and depth of Indian cricket. But you have players that have been there, done that, and done it for a period of time. And I think it's up to Prithvi Shaw to ensure that when those guys move on, that he can take up the mantle. But I wouldn't think that he would be replacing either of them, if I'm totally honest.
One name I'd like to propose in the options as opener, Shubman Gill.
Sure.
I think he's become an out-and-out T20 top-order batter and hence an option, a choice for the selectors when they're looking at all the candidates.
You can have a full top 7 of openers if you want. There's so many. You can have an 11 of openers if you extend the net to the likes of Mayank Agarwal or some of the others too who've performed in the IPL over the years. But anyway, that's for a few selectors, of which neither Sanjay Manjrekar or Carlos Brathwaite are part of. So they're happy to leave that enviable job to Chetan Sharma and co. Let's focus on the Punjab team, shall we? It's a fascinating story. This looks like a power-hitting side, but they hit and miss as well. And therefore, they found themselves falling short of 200 plus scores when they looked good for them at halfway stages. They made the one change. Nathan Ellis has come in. It's a call that Sanjay Manjrekar could foresee. He saw a specialist bowler coming in. We were wondering if they'd find room for Bhanukar Rajapaksa or maybe add an extra batter so they can have more security or insurance to play that power game, Sanjay. But they've effectively gone for Nathan Ellis, who doesn't have the batting credentials of Oden Smith, though Smith has had a tough few games.
Clearly shows that Johnny Bairstow is highly regarded in the team. They believe that he's one of their main players and want him to have as much time to come back into form because that could have been another option. Bhanukar Rajapaksa is a tempting option down at number 4 and 5. Difficult position to bat. He's had a couple of brilliant innings. But Mayank Agarwal, Shikhar Dhawan, pretty steady, reliable opening pair. And then Liam Livingston has been saving the nights for them on a lot of occasions. So it's a course they will go. I don't know how long they'll continue to be patient with Johnny Bairstow. I'm thinking maybe 1 or 2 innings. And we've seen a few players when they're given the long rope, like Fav. I mean, he was always going to get a long run. Fav du Plessis coming back in form. Ruturaj Gaikwad back in form. So let's hope it's Johnny's night tonight.
Oden Smith, Carlos, the highs and lows of the IPL. Player of the match in his first game, and then a string of off games and a 12 of 2 that significantly cost him. Finds himself out of the team. Fair call in your opinion?
Yeah, it was always going to be tough for him to keep his play unless he bowled well. You want the batting to add to good bowling and not be the only thing he's being picked for. But you know what? I was so happy with the way he came back and defended after his 12 off 2. Can't remember which game it was, but he defended Salman Monko in the last over. And I just felt really good for him because when you go through something like that, you become either battle hardened or battle scarred. And it seemed as though obviously he wanted it because he bowled the last over in the game after. But then to learn from it and to execute, was really happy for him. Look, he's still a young. The last year or so would have been a whirlwind for him. He's worked very hard to get to where he is now, but I think as he goes on, as he goes along, he'll learn a bit more bowling smarts, when to bowl, what delivery, fields to set, that sort of stuff, and just sorting his line and length out. It's very easy when you bowl quickly to think that pace will do it all, but he's clever enough to know that he still needs a bit of work on the bowling. And once he can bowl 4 overs, or at least be sure to bowl at least 3 overs and bowl them well, get the odd wicket, and be fairly disciplined, the batting is the cherry on top of what will be a very good tasting cake. I can tell you that guy has all the tools to be a
Right.
quality all-round white ball cricket.
Yep. Sanjay?
The pitches have been very good. And I think more and more franchises are realizing that you've got to have quality in your bowling attack. And you see 3 or 4 teams that have had a resurgence of doing well. The Gujarat Titans, the Sunrisers Hyderabad, because they've got quality in their bowling attack. LSG as well. And I think that is what they're trying to do, Punjab. You're trying to get quality in. Nathan Ellis has a good run. Then you're looking at Arshdeep, Rabada and Nathan Ellis, your 3 bowlers. Vaibhav Arora will be your sort of wild card. They don't have much of a spin element. They have Rahul Char and Liam Livingston doesn't bowl as much. But more and more teams, especially on this kind of a surface, want, So I'm very happy they're going for purists and not, guys who might just bowl a better batter.
All right, fair enough. Now, Oden Smith, except for that first game where he went for 52 against RCB, hasn't bowled his full quota of 4 overs. In the last game, in fact, he was bowled just the 1 over. So clearly, faith in Oden Smith's bowling was on the wane, and he wasn't quite getting runs with bat either. So you could see this call coming, but Nathan Ellis comes in.
These guys are very useful. Get 2-3 overs, we have a cameo of 20-30. But when you push the wall with the kind of pitches that you have, then you need some, quality in bowling.
Fair enough.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all. Liam Livingston, though, is perhaps surely consuming the most amount of time in an opposition pre-match game plan discussion, because the man's in form and he is consistent. He's not just a maverick who comes off on some days and not on the others. He seems to be coming off more often than not now. So I guess it's a simple question for teams. How do we start off and how do we stop Livingston? Carlos, especially in the smallest ground or one of the most high-scoring grounds, it's got its share of big side boundaries, but Liam Livingston looks $1 million at the moment. How do you get him out if you want to get him out early?
Good question. Very good question.
I mean, there's one where Bumrah bowled him a full and straight one, he missed it, Yorker, so that's what we know so far, but everyone doesn't have a Bumrah. Anyone in this team who could try that?
Yeah, I mean, full and straight is always an option. I think you've got 2 defaults. You either go full and straight early or you touch down on that test length as it be, 4th stump, see if we get a little movement in or out and take the edge. But I think for someone like him, because he starts so well and so quickly, you probably want to think on the defensive first, with that being an attacking option. So if I can get Liam Livingston to hit the sweeper for 10 balls, and he's 10 off 10 as opposed to 25 off 10, then into the game. But that in itself is also quite dangerous, because if Liam Livingston bats 10 balls, that 11th ball onward is very, very dangerous. So I think if you have an attacking ball in your team, potentially 140 plus, you get him in, you get one around the nose, one on the toes, and you try to get him out as early as possible. If you don't, it may just be a waiting game, trying to keep the ball out of his arc. So you're going wide Yorker, heel Yorker, probably short ball, and not be predictable.
Sanjay?
A couple of bowlers that they could try. Khalil Ahmed, who bowls the full-length delivery, not the Bumrah kind of, control or potency. And Kuldeep Yadav is somebody you want to unleash against Liam Livingston, and that would be great. In fact, I'll be watching that very carefully to see the range of Liam Livingston, the batter, if he takes Kuldeep Yadav on. Because he's one of the only guys that we have in this tournament who turns the leg spin big and will turn the googly big as well. That's why Nokia would have been helpful in that Delhi attack, to go hard at Liam.
Perhaps
it will happen.
Our good friend Ajit Agarkar knows that he's not quite looking the part. Would you look at this?
We can put our trust in Mr. Ajit Agarkar, and no bias here, because he's
a friend of the platform.
Yeah, and we have a small group as well.
No, of course, don't brag. No. No, I don't like to reveal what groups I'm part of. Yeah.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, no, that's for you. Anyway, we'll leave that there and we'll pick up the chat once we get a prediction. Sanjay's favorite part of on T20 timeout. Now, Mayank Agarwal is back, so that'll be a big boost for Punjab's batting. Simran Singh is out. So what do they need? 217 was nearly chased down the other day. 200 plus?
I mean, you need 200 plus to feel comfortable, but I'm going to go, because you have some uncertainty in the middle and huge reliance on Liam Livingstone. Johnny Bairstow is still not in full flow. I'm going to go with 194.
Ooh, 194. Carlos Brathwaite. That's very specific from Sanjay. Give me a specific number yourself.
Nah, 190. I'm the general this time.
190. 190. Boundary the difference. We shall find out if Punjab go ballistic and get 200 plus or whether they fall short, in which case you think Delhi would feel they're in the game. Big thank you to Carlos Brathwaite and Sanjay Manjrekar. More from them on Maruti Suzuki Presents ESPN Cricinfo T20 Timeout, powered by iQOO 9 5G at halftime. So do join us then.